Good afternoon and welcome to the Board of Education and Business Committee meeting of Tuesday, September 23rd, 2025. I'd like to acknowledge that this meeting is taking place on the lands of the Hulkameeting speaking people, specifically the Quamitson Village. The Board of Education is honored to be able to collaboratively walk beside the Quatsin, Malahat, Sabasset, Holt, Connellcuts, the Manus, the Alaskan peoples who cared for this land for thousands of years. May we walk gently on the unceded territories of their lands as we work together to lift up all of us. Board of Education, motion to adopt the agenda. Board of Education and Business Committee adopts the agenda of September 23rd, 2025. Board of Education and Business Committee, Trustee Schmidt, Trustee Croft, all in favor, motion carries. Minutes of the the May 27th, 2025 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting. Board of Education and Business Committee adopt the minutes of the May 27th, 2025 Board of Education and Business Committee meeting. Vise, Strachan, all in favor? Carried. All right, petitions. Maple Bay Elementary School.
Hey, we're going right into it, everybody. Here we go.
Welcome.
Sure.
Oh, yeah, everybody like
I need to step out for an emergency meeting, so my apologies that I need to do this right now. But
Ike Squale, CM News Connecticut. I'm Nicole Davey. I am the principal of Maple Bay, and it is such a pleasure for us to be here to share our story. I know we're supposed to be presenting on our festival, but our story really is a reflection that shows up in everything we do, and it will show up in our festival as well. And I'm so grateful to have amazing staff, students, and parents here because it's not just my story, it is our story, it is student story, it's parent story, and it's the story of our land. So I'm very happy to be able to share this with you today. And I want to acknowledge that we are on the traditional unceded territory of the Coast Salish, Hulkameeting speaking people. And I am relatively new to the island. And as someone who is new, but also someone who is a guest on this land, it is my responsibility to learn the language, the culture, and the stories of this land and give thanks to the people who have been here for time immemorial. So with that, so at Maple Bay, we believe in as much educating the heart as the mind. And we strive to create a learning environment that puts students at the center, providing opportunities for learners to fulfill their potential. I am just going into not even my second year as the principal, so I have had a lot of learning to do. And part of that learning is learning the stories of hard data, street data, satellite data, so that we have a very clear sense of what is going on for our learners. So sources of data would be things like our FSA, and our literacy and our numeracy screeners, and our student learning surveys, but also things like our attendance rates and office referrals. So taking all of that data in mind is what guides us for our school goals. So using that data, we have come up with two overarching goals. One is an academic goal, and it's literacy and numeracy. And then the other is a sense of belonging. And we've had this goal for quite some time, but we are really honing these goals, and coming into this year, we really want to focus on creating that sense of belonging through culture and identity, and and specifically, I think, going deeper into understanding Indigenous ways of life. With that, I would like to introduce Jen Ward and Rebecca Love, two amazing teachers at our school who have a story to share.
Yeah, I'll stand to the side of you. So I'm here to share a story of some learning that our two classes did last year, my kindergarten class and Jen's grade 4 class. We were buddy classes, and the project really encompasses our school goals with literacy, numeracy as the academic focus, but also belonging. What we did was we did a big integrated learning journey that was rooted in Indigenous ways of knowing, environmental stewardship, and community connection, all centered around the practice of cedar harvesting. So after a few years of learning about cedar, my class has done it for many years. When Jen became my buddy class, I roped you into doing it with me, and I really appreciate all your help that you did. Jen helped facilitate a field trip that she'll talk more about, and we have some lovely pictures of it. But first, I'll go over what our young learners explored. So we learned about the importance of cedar, how to respectfully gather, how to use to make clothing and other items, and how we take only what we need. Through this, they learned the deep value of respecting the land and understanding that we are all connected. We're all connected to the earth, we're all connected to one another, and to our broader community. On top of the curriculum that covered, it was really key that our big buddies played such a powerful role, as through this project, older students supported and learned alongside the kindergarten students, showing that knowledge flows both ways and that learning is richer when it's done together. Although we had to participate in cedar harvesting separately on our field trip due to
requests
and to culminate, after our field trip, we had cedar, and we practiced weaving the cedar together into beautiful cedar mats. It's in the picture, but Jen has the mats that each child was able to make their own mat and take it home. And yeah, it was lovely having the field trip and then doing that together. So this experience wasn't just about learning content, it was about learning how to be thoughtful, to be respectful, and to be part of something bigger than ourselves. So Jen did a lot of the work on getting the field trip happening.
Do you want to do slides first?
Yeah,
Slides
first.
Yeah, would you like?
Yeah, I think it's slides first.
So this is just to give you a sense of what it looked like. So I had never been on a cedar harvest or cedar pull before. I was biased because it's something I've been really interested in for a variety of reasons, but it is way out of my comfort zone. So I had no idea where to begin. I've taken classes to Yumnuts and Sumina and other places, but this was completely different. So we traveled up Swuckus, and now every time I look at Mount Provost Swuckus, a very different connection to it, because every time I look at it, I'm thinking of the students and Weampton and our experience. Having the two different age groups was fantastic, because even for Weampton to be able to speak to our very young learners and then our older learners who will eventually become caregivers for us possibly one day in our land, it's amazing for them to have that connection. So a big part of what I just wanted to bring up with this whole process was the importance of student voice. So the process, like I said, completely out of my area. We had Sonia Charlie come in and speak about how to be in the right space with cedar, which I did not understand before. So even just coming in with a positive attitude, and if you need the break, you take the break, and you don't force yourself working with cedar. The next piece was Cecil Price. He was amazing. So he worked with both of us. It took more than a year, and that's one of the things that's hard when you're combining two different perspectives. You don't get what you want when you want it all the time. And it's okay to wait, because then it's more meaningful. And so I had the chance of working in the Yukon. It's the same there. You can't rush a brilliant process. It's just, you can't. So it took over a year, but the second year he was able to get on it right away for us. And I had no idea where we were going. I didn't know who was going to be going with us. I didn't know how many honorariums I would need. So with this project, I got a grant through the Jane Goodall Institute, and it was $1,000, and you put in what you want to use it for. And this, for us, this trip was around $800, but it was worth absolutely everything. That includes honorariums, gifts, buses, prep work. We even took, not that you needed to know this, but we took with us a portable washroom, because we had little students and you can't say, oh, by the way, just good luck. It's too stressful. So we had a quick makeshift pop-up and a little, yeah, they loved it. They all loved them. So we showed them, a week before, and they all got to go in and look at it. But it was really important for them to feel relaxed and calm and on the land. And again, we learned about plants, and we began in a circle, and we learned how to introduce ourselves properly, and so many other teachings that weren't something I expected. And one of the other main things was how Williamton was able to connect the trees as members of like your family. So when the sapling begins to grow, its grandfather is right there. And it just completely connected it. So it's the kind of learning that I love. It's the kind of learning that the students need. And it's tricky to do because in an economical sense, it can add up quickly, but it's worth everything. So I have, of course, brought props because I'm a teacher. So this is what we actually pulled. And after we came back to the school, I walked around and I'm like, hey, showing it to everyone, trying to share it with everyone because that's the purpose of this learning. And some of the students went and shared with other students. But the feeling afterwards was something I didn't expect, completely relaxed. I don't know if I had a parent share with me that after you do the cedar, when you're working with cedar, you can actually have, feel like, not like toxins are being taken out, but you have a different, it's almost like eucalyptus. I don't know how to explain it, so you'd have to experience it. And then with students, of course, we use things like the cedar tree is at the heart of our people, Lucian. And then this is for sort of grade 2 students, but the point was just that this is all about perspective. So instead of looking the way we normally look at things, this is a book written from underneath the water looking up. And so then we also look at trees looking up and down and things like that. So perspective then, of course, comes up when we do contact. So who's missing, whose voice is missing, and the children always notice there's never any children, and they get everyone else. So this was just so much bigger than a cedar piece. I think I'll end there. That's more than enough. I think I can do more if you want.
I know, it's so hard to condense this.
We have others, so.
And I think from there, the idea of weaving became a really important metaphor for us. So this year, we are going to start with every intermediate student weaving a square, and we will sew these together to make a blanket. And the weaving really is a symbol of weaving together Indigenous ways of knowing and Western ways of knowing. And we're looking at weaving together the cedar and the maple. One of the things that Jen emphasized was student voice, so I don't think it would make sense for us to have this presentation without our students. So I would love to introduce Adriana Foley, Lily Pellin, and Dallas Scott.
Hello, I'm Dallas.
I'm Lily.
And I'm Adriana.
We are grade 6 students at Maple Bay. We are here to tell you the story of Hunter. For a while, we wanted to adopt a new mascot. We wanted a mascot that represented who we are, and we wanted to honor the land where Maple Bay resides.
We are on the unceded territory of the Coast Salish people. We wanted to connect the culture, language, and stories of our land. We explored many animals, but the orca had a special meaning to us. Maple Bay is so unique because we are close to the ocean and the orcas are often seen often.
During this time, we also learned of a story happening close to us about a special killer whale. A baby and its mother became trapped in a lagoon near Zabalas. The mother died and the baby could not escape. The indigenous people and the fisheries tried and tried to help the baby, but they couldn't, until one day the baby was strong enough to escape. The baby's name was Brave Little Hunter.
Our Indigenous mascot then became Brave Little Hunter, or Hunter for short. We adopted Hunter. Just like Maple Bay students, Hunter is strong, resilient, and has found a new home with another pod.
Hunters now on our jerseys are signs of part of who we are. For the last 2 years, we have had a chance to create art and poetry to celebrate Hunter and our connections to the land.
This is the poster I made last year. It represents the land we live on, the animals that live on this land, and the indigenous people that have lived on this land for thousands of years.
This is a poster and poem I made last year. It represents all different types of people, specifically people of darker skin colors. I also included different hair and birthmarks, glasses and birthmarks. You will also notice that I included a wheelchair. I don't see any reason why someone should be made fun of or treated different just because they look different or need more assistance. This poem that I was introduced to was written by Chief Dan George. I think that he perfectly explained nature and how it is all alive, just like us. Some leaves may turn brown early, some stems are larger, but we are all alive, and that's what matters. I would now like to share with one. The beauty of a tree is the softness of the air, the fragrance of the grass speaks to me.
The summit of the mountain, the splendor of the sky, the rhythm of the sea speaks to me.
The faintness of the stars, the freshness of the morning, the dewdrops on the flowers speak to me.
The strength of fire, the taste of salmon, the trail of the sun, and the life that never goes away, they speak to me, and my heart soars. Thank you.
A couple more pictures celebrating Hunter. Thank you. Hi, Sarka. Thank you.
Any questions, trustee? Trustee Schmidt?
More of a statement to the students. First of all, that poem was beautiful. Thank you very much. And your voice matters more than anybody's, and I don't know if you realize that, but as a board, we have always put the student in the center of our table to make our decisions. And so what you've said to us here today and how you spoke to us and the message you wanted to give to us, we all heard it because your voices are always louder than anybody else's that speaks to us. So thank you so much. Teachers, wow, amazing. Thank you for all that you did on that. That presentation was excellent. And yes, I would have loved to have heard more of it.
Anytime.
I'll remember that. Yeah. And thank you for supporting and lifting and making sure that this all can come to be. That's a pretty amazing story we heard today about Maple Bay. And so I just want to lift my hands and raise my hands to you and say, thank you to students and to staff for all you're doing for kiddos and for what you're doing to the kids below you. You set a very important example. So thank you.
Also, hi Sepka. And for us, every meeting I come to, our strategic plan and our stories beyond education is attached to the back of my work. And when I see and feel the indigenous ways of being, and then the keepers of our climate, because space, as you know, without it, we are nothing. And so when I see that come to life for something that this board holds really dear every day that we're here, it's just really, really wonderful. And great job. Great job. Thank you.
Any other questions?
Sorry, you just look like you're just looking a little past me. I'm so sorry. I wanted to thank the students for their presentation and doing such a careful consideration on Hunter and what that meant to your school. And I think that as years go by, sometimes we forget. We see a beautiful image like that and we kind of take it for granted, but when you gather those stories and that deep knowledge, I think it really lasts and it really will have meaning for a lot of the students that after you graduate, they'll find that very special. So you have left a legacy for which we're grateful. I want to mention to the teachers, I really appreciated your how you're manifesting the fact that Indigenous knowledge, we're co-building a new world. And so when you talked about combining traditional knowledge with Western knowledge, and that this is the generation that's going to build that world, and we don't know what it's going to look like, which sort of speaks to, you go out on these learning adventures, you don't know what they're going to look like. And I sort of think that weaving embodied so many of the things that you talked about today. So thank you.
Thank you for the presentation on the Cedar opportunity. Is that something you're going to be able to do again this year?
Sure. It's a lot of work just because it's tricky. So some of the realities were, I'll just be honest. So we had an arrangement that we were meeting at the first yellow gate of Provost. I went up on the weekend, took pictures for the bus to know where to turn around. I was in contact with transportation, blah, blah, blah. When they got to the first gate, our knowledge holder in Lambton said, oh, no, it's 20 more minutes. up the mountain. And so that's when, what? So that was tricky, and if you tried, so the next day we were able to use vehicles and parents, and they loved it, by the way. The parents said it was the best trip they've ever been on, which was great, but it's tricky because when they're little, they need booster seats. And so if you're not using transportation, it's really hard. And at the school, we don't have access to the trees because it's CBRD land. We also, though, had someone from forestry with us. So we had Quiemtum Forestry, but they had gone out earlier to do protocols. That wasn't our focus, so they did all of that piece. She was with him, but there is a place on her road where you can see the 10% of the tree that's been pulled in several different instances. So I would love to do it again. It's just so much, and I was a little stressed when I heard, we can't drive the bus up there tomorrow. Oh, okay.
We've done it before, like last year we got to go on the field trip, but we did the same thing the year before, we just didn't get to do the cedar pulling, so we learned with math, we learned patterns and science, plant life cycle, seasonal changes, social studies, storytelling, sharing with the community is art expression. So we still do that learning, just maybe not the pulling part.
Well, or even to do it every second year or something, and then invite you to, because it's amazing. Like, I would never have, I knew it would be amazing, but it's bigger than.
And I do have to give a big thanks to our transportation
They
department.
were awesome. Yeah.
Came up with unexpected,
They were lovely.
literal bumps in the road, and yeah, they were amazing, and they helped us navigate.
Yeah. Yeah, they made it real.
Kudos to you guys. It's too bad you couldn't do it every year.
I know, well, we'll see. I'm getting the grant I hope I can, so maybe, I don't know.
When Maple Bay comes to visit or I hear anything about that school, 2 daughters who went to Maple Bay, and nothing but a great experience there. And that's one of the things I always think about at Maple Bay, what a great place to go to school. So the other thing I think of was a conniving teacher who made sure myself and the superintendent ended up in the dunk tank at the fun fairs.
Be an invitation coming your way this spring.
Let me tell you, if Tim goes in, Jason will. I'll be in, and his brother, because I gotta get his brother back. And if those 4 go in, I will. There we go.
Okay, there we go.
Yeah, whole lineup now.
So, a couple other
I'll
people.
come and watch.
Make it balance the scales, yeah.
Hold up the money, Elizabeth.
Thank you very much.
The money.
Oh, okay.
Thank you very
That's
much.
usually my job.
Welcome.
Kaboom.
Next up, Cowichan Secondary.
Cowichan Secondary.
Cowichan Secondary, sorry.
Hey, you. I see you sitting in the corner over there. I had breakfast with Keith on Sunday.
We're going to be learning pretty quickly that on Thursday and Friday we have a plan, and Kelly and Lindy have set up all these amazing slides, and then they're going to try and match the slides with everything that I've kind of changed in my mind since we are reminded every day by the space that we're in right now of the fact that we live, learn, play on the territory of the Coast Salish people speaking, and how fortunate we are to be welcomed and present on that land. We are still, there's a lot of misperceptions. We're Cowichan Secondary. Some people are still saying Cowichan. We have been given blessing that it's Cowichan, meaning still somewhat cow high, and we are still the Thunderbirds. But we are also the Swaha'as. And here's where an audio clip's going to happen.
Volume up on the TV.
My pronunciation of Hokkien is so good, you don't need it. Swaha'as.
That's why
I do want to make sure that you'll hear in a moment that Lindy Gervin, Lindy Thompson, vice principals, and we have Massa and Natalie and Gemma change of plans. Ava had rowing practice. Gemma's amazingly agreed to step in at the last minute. It's impossible to talk about our framework for enhancing student learning without talking about the fact that we, as a community, change locations. It really is central to everything we do, and I think that for all of us, the staff and the students, there's a recognition of what an enormous opportunity, but also responsibility it is to be the first whole school year in this building. I remember, for some of you who've been around, 10 years ago, I was technically an admin of Cowichan Secondary when it was dual campus. Charlie was over here and I was at Quamachin. There was dual campus. I remember talking to Charlie always, and he talked about Cowichan Secondary being like the Titanic. It's a giant ship that you can only turn so much at a time. But I think there's a real recognition that that is currently not true. There's an opportunity in being in a new space and a new community to do things in a different way, to improve upon all the amazing traditions that school has and improve upon it. There's some stats there about our student population, but I'm on a strict timer. We have, I think, let's see what's on the next slide. Surprise me. New building, new initiatives that meet with the framework. I mean, on the surface, our framework for enhancing student learning goals are pretty consistent with the strategic plan and with most schools. We want to improve literacy and numeracy for our students. This has been done traditionally in a programmatic way in high schools a lot of times, where different programs are designed for different skills. And those have a place, but we are trying to work towards incorporating more evidence-based interventions that apply to all students. There's a few different ways we're doing this. We're increasing our communication with Quamachin. We're increasing the transparency of the information we get from Quamachin. We're gathering our data, using their data, and we know the data tells us that students in grade 10 who complete 5 or more courses have nearly a 100% graduation rate. We know that grade 10 is that moment in time. And it's worth pointing out that Cowichan Secondary is a bit of a perfect storm in that we're a 10, 11, 12 school. The proficiency scale goes from K to 9, and 10, 11, 12 is the beginning of the graduation program, credits for courses, percentage. It's just a lot of change that gets thrown at these kids in one shot. So to that end, we've assigned some of these. We've reformatted school-based team. We've assigned a department head the responsibility of grade 10 transitions. That department head is responsible for communicating with teachers, regular classroom views, and trying to catch those kids that aren't landing the way that they want to, and creating what we're going to do to get them there. We know if we get them through grade 10, they're probably going to graduate if they get 5 or more courses. We also obviously want to graduate more kids, more priority learners, but we also want to ensure that our graduates are literate and numerate citizens who are ready for the challenge of the world. Let's see what the next slide is. Okay. The second goal, can we see what the next one is? Okay. In everything that we do at Cowichan Secondary, as I mentioned at the beginning, we are reminded of the territory we're on. And we're going to have some improvements in the way that Indigenous culture and the way that the Cowichan people were represented in our daily goings-on just by accident, not by accident, sorry, because of all the hard work that the people who were involved in the design of the building did. But even if we did nothing, it would still happen by accident because there's visual representation, there's language. But we are working really hard to intentionally leverage all of that. And Miss Bobby tells me that I could go on forever with the orientation of the building and the highway and the river, but I won't. But I can tell you that we try to recognize daily in some capacity, Indigenous ways of being and knowing. Our kids have already had Kelly arranged 3 different storytelling sessions in assemblies where we've been hearing from elders. Ms. Bobby holds regular sessions. She's having more next week, teaching people about the use of the Samana space. We've had jam sessions where you can hear the sound of music coming out of the Samana space into the atrium. And I really could go on, but I won't, because our students also have things to say. The other thing, on the mental health front, the number one antidote they tell us about adolescent anxiety is the number one antidote to anxiety or anxiousness is human connection. And again, intentionality. Just by the design of the building, we were going to inevitably have a more close-knit community than we had in the old building. In the old one, you walked in, you turned left, you turned right, the doors were closed, the walls were there. We now have gathering spaces, we have student collab spaces, we have our balconies, we have glass classrooms. The learning is visible. Our adults are forced to say good morning to each other because they didn't. You used to walk in, turn left, turn right, close your door, you got your own coffee maker. Through the teacher prep spaces, through everything else we're building. But again, I want to focus on the intentionality of things that we're doing, including sometimes we have community assemblies. We just go get 150 students at a time and we have a conversation. What's going on in the school for you? What's going on for us? What can we do together to work together to make things better? This was a huge topic at the beginning about our washrooms. We had to get together with the kids and say, this is all new. We're sharing facilities. What does that look like? How does a toilet seat work?
Let the toilet seat
You know what? It's fantastic. It's fantastic.
Wash
the
your
kids
hands.
Learned. The kids work together. I think Jill and I don't want to steal thunder, but they're safer spaces. But we have these conversations in small groups. So we have the ability to gather with 100, 150 kids at communities. We have the ability to have a gathering in the Samana space. And again, as Bobby has said, I can't have a meeting with students in the Samana space, but I can have a gathering. I can have a conversation that goes 2 ways. They tell me what's going on for them. I share with them some of the things that are going on for us. We work together on those things. We had the Cowhide Games in the spring. Am I out of time? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm saying we have the ability to come together in our gym as well for the first time.
Yes. Yeah. We've had full school assemblies where, again, we can hear each other's voices and look each other in the eyes. Our staff meetings nowadays, where our staff aren't looking at the back of each other's heads. They're looking at each other as we're in the round, having conversations. And moving towards interdisciplinary collegiality, interdisciplinary cooperation. We have classrooms where the door is open and we have 2 teachers co-teaching. We are trying to rewrite the way that we just are in the space as adults and kids, with that recognition and that moment of sleeplessness at 3 a.m. where you recognize that some of the things that are being established now will still exist as patterns of human behavior when these kids are going to this school. It's a responsibility. I think this is a Spider-Man. It's a responsibility, but it's also an incredible privilege. And I think that we together are recreating Cowichan Secondary.
And I think students recognize that the building has been built for them, the spaces and places that they can go, feel safe, for learning, for gathering, for socializing, depending on what's appropriate. Even learning spaces, being in a classroom, being in the community learning center, on the balcony, collaboration. Teachers have a view of their students too, to see where the learning is happening. So it's great. And with that note, we'd like to pass it over to our students. So student voice, we're going to start with Miss Natalie. Come on up, all 3 of you, please. So we have Natalie, Gemma, and Massa. They're here on behalf of our students to speak to you.
Hi, thank you so much for having us. As a grade 12 student in the new building, and we moved there in January, I have been so excited to be in the new building because it's very nice. But also there's so much stuff that has been designed in the building that has made us feel more like a community. I really like how the walls are windows so that you feel better to walk into a classroom that you might have never been in before, because you can see what it looks like. You can see who the teacher is, who's in the classroom, and it's easier to communicate with others. And then like in leadership, sometimes we'll have to go to classes and talk about like upcoming events. So it's easier to walk into the classrooms or meet in our little like pod areas and just talk about it. We have lots of like indigenous symbols and signs and stuff all around our building. So on my very first day in the new building last year, my French immersion class got to walk around and just pay attention to all the different things all around the building. So we have lots of the symbols all like on the walls and names. And outside we have salmon in the ground that when it rains, they turn white, I believe, because all the rainwater like pools in them. It's very cool. Yeah. And then also we have pod areas. So we have student collaboration rooms, and there's 4 of them, and so they're all one color of the salmon life cycle, which I think is very cool to see like all the different colors, because I learned about that in like elementary school and stuff like that, but seeing it now and how it's being incorporated into the new school, and since most of the elementary schools in the area come to Cowichan Secondary, I think it's really important to have all those different aspects still there. And we also have the nurse couching program, which is very nice. But where it is now, it's a lot more visible and welcoming to students. So sometimes at the old building, if you were to go down there, you'd feel like everyone could see you. But now you can see it and you know where you can go if you need lunch in the program. And also the counseling office. So at the old building, the counseling office used to be across from the main office, and it was very like everyone could tell that you were going to the counseling office, which is fine. But at the new building, it's a lot more open and welcoming, and you kind of know if you want the careers or the counseling office. And I just think that the building has definitely turned us into more of a community.
Yes, as Ali was saying about the indigenous focus of the school, we have a samana space, which is a meeting room. I believe the walls are cedar. And it's a place that we use to meet in groups, like I believe the staff have meetings there. And in my French immersion class, we went there and we watched a movie about a young indigenous girl and her story, and that was really great. And then also Miss Bobby, if you go into the summer rooms, sometimes she can teach you about the space and that sort of thing. And then for the bathrooms, as he brought up, I do like.
What's his name?
They are a lot nicer because the stalls go up floor to ceiling instead of having big gaps, because they weren't really private before. But now they are very nice, and you can go in there and you don't have to worry about other people. And plus, there's a lot less congregating in the spaces, and that way there's more people in class and less people in there chatting.
Yeah, so as Gemma said, we now have a full-time elder at our school, Miss Bobby, and it's very nice to be able to see her in the mornings, and I ask her how to say certain words, and she helps me until I can pronounce it right, and it's very, very nice. She's very welcoming, it's great. In assemblies, every once in a while, we now get a story, a indigenous story. For example, the first day of school for the grade 10s, they had the story about the Thunderbird and the orca, and it was a very beautiful story. I really enjoyed listening to it. We have had stories of indigenous people done before, but it felt completely anew to have it at every single assembly. In my English 11 class, we also taught about the importance of First Peoples learning and comparing it to the Western ones and how it's important to see the differences and the contrast. Mr. Jackson hit on it. New building, it's a new start, and also meaning new clubs. So we have a start of a new Model UN club at our school. We never had one before, and we have been starting with that. There's an expanding interest in our EHO club. We have over 15 members now, and we have a developing student council and more. And I just wanted to say we're very thankful of our amazing teachers who are still at the building, because that was one of our most favorite things. We had the senior sunrise, which happened, which was a great opportunity for all the students to gather before school and to get to see how their summer was going and to collaborate. Collaboration rooms, all the students love it. It's a great way to study for tests, to feel like you can actually talk with others without worrying that other people are picking up on your conversations. We have the Youth Health Center for anyone who is in need of help. And what else? The grade 10s and to 12 are feeling much better together. What happened, like Mr. Jackson said, you just go straight to your classroom with the old building, but now all the grade 10s and 12s talk to each other because the hallways are bigger, so everyone just sees each other and says hi while just walking past. It just feels much more welcoming.
Also, we have a multi or atrium space that's like right in the door where everybody can gather, and we've had presentations from student nurses there, and it's a really great space for sharing with the entire school.
The pancakes tasted.
Oh, I don't think I had them.
We've had some mixed reviews on the quality of the pancakes.
You did.
Questions?
I have no last words.
Questions? So how bad were the pancakes?
I put a lot of syrup on them.
Yes.
Trustee Schmidt.
First of all, I would like to thank you, the staff. Cowichan Secondary is a new start. Several of us around this table graduated at that old school, and we were really happy to see it go. But we were also really excited for kids in the new start. And when I found out about what you were doing with this grad sunrise, I thought what a great tradition to start in the new building for September. And to witness kids and how many came out shocked me, completely shocked me. Superintendent's cooking skills got better as the event went. But it was beautiful to watch kids come together as a class, because you're right. You got 5 in your class. Sometimes the grad classes don't actually get to know all of their friends that are graduating with, because they've been so separated depending on what they were taking, where they were going, and that was it was so beautiful to watch as the kids walked down at the end of the road and waited for the sunrise, but then to see them in the atrium as the sun was really coming up, it was really a powerful moment. And with new school, sometimes change can be easy, and I think that was one of those changes that I just thought, the school's on a new journey and it's on a new path, and it was so desperately needed. The old school was so industrial, and so thank you for that, and thank you for I've heard for years and years and years about staff and how that was all working out, and so thank you for making those changes as well. Because when you walk in the school, it definitely feels different. And I'm sure that it's the openness of everybody having to see everybody and kind of get to know who your colleagues are as well. And so thank you for making those critical changes, which will only ripple down to students. It's a beautiful building, but it's nothing without what staff's doing for the kids. So first of all, thank you for that. I really appreciate you guys. As far as the kids, thank you. I think all 3 of you have answered a ton of questions that we've all been wondering. How are the bathrooms going? And how is the space going? To hear how, the bathrooms, thank you. Like, we were really curious about how, you've been there for a while now, how is that really going? And we had hoped that it changed a lot of things, but safety was one of them. So it was really good to hear that piece. And as far as the Salmonist space, and it being culturally respected, you guys really understand that. And I think that that's amazing. So thank you for sharing that. And your clubs and the build and the care for the land. We've talked about this with you at Climate Action for a couple of years now, and how important that is. And so thank you for reminding us that space was built for that. And so I'm really glad that you as students are taking a hold of that and just running with it, because it's the perfect place to show others what happens when you take care of the land and the ecos that will happen as the seasons happen. We haven't seen all the seasons at that school, so that'll be really quite something. But thank you for maybe taking some of those thoughts that we had wondered about how the building was really doing. How are those glass walls really doing? That was great. Thank you. It's been a question in my mind for a long time. So just thank you for being brave enough to tell us. And thank you for being wise enough to take a hold of what you've been given and make it your own. And I'm just really excited for you guys and what the year will hold for your class. So thank you for being here today and stuff. Thank you for changing the face of what needed to be changed many years ago, but is now being changed now. So thank you.
Way cool. I'm also one of the people who graduated from that high school. I was super cool back then. And I didn't make pancakes, I only served them, so you can't blame me. We know that kids learn when they go to school. And it sounds to me like this is a place that you want to get up every day and go to school. So I would be curious about attendance. How has that changed since the opening of the school? So
we've had about 25 new students from Quamachin that have not attended since grade 8. A lot with Indigenous ancestry come through our doors and are there.
That is so exciting.
And I think it was the space, the new build, kids talking about it in community and talking about the flexible options, and just I think the space of the Samana space, the gathering space, just having identity shown, right? We have definitely noticed. It has also brought up some challenges as far as service and support for students who haven't been to school in 2 years. And so we are really, really working with our new department head and the literacy success coordinators here at the district. We had a meeting with Amy and Lisa last week about it, Lindy and I, and we're just really trying to wrap around students and ensure that everybody's there with purpose and getting there. It's really lovely to see those kids. Yes.
Last year, the attendance rate, last year we couldn't really get, I don't think, an accurate picture of the impact on attendance because change is hard no matter what it looks like. And we have to acknowledge that for some kids, picking up in February and moving to a new space, when they had their safe spaces, when they had their routines and their patterns. So I feel like we can start to see now and start to collect data, but last year was different. We had kids who struggled to make the transition from a place they really knew well to a brand new place.
And I believe we had a record-breaking attendance on the first day of school.
And yeah, I just have one more thing to share with you. So when you had the open house, when it opened, a dear friend of mine who is Indigenous, and she's in her 60s, the two of us went and we did a tour of the school. And we talked about all of the elements of counseling that were embedded into that school. And we were getting ready to say farewell, and I asked her, I said, what do you think? And she started to cry. She was standing in the atrium, and she started to cry. And she said, I have lived in this community my whole life, and this is the first time I've ever felt like I've walked into a building where I've been heard. And so I can imagine what that feels like for somebody in their 60s, as well as for some of our young students who are finding their way back into the school. So I just wanted to share that. So, oh my goodness, have a great year. Yeah.
Trustee Souza.
Thank you. It's been amazing listening to you all, and it's been very meaningful for me, not just to listen, but to reflect on, going on those site visits when we're wearing our, hard hats and construction boots for various weathers, and the, the safety vests and everything from those early stages to the signing on the sort of the I-beam, now behind the sort of the gymnasium outer wall. And then walking with the students to the new school in January and reflecting on that to where we are now and to hear from you as well as to your experiences on September 23rd, 2025 is profound. It's wonderful. And similarly to Trustee Schmidt, to hear about how the Washrooms are doing, given all the the politics around it, the ignorance around it, and the fears and all that things are working well is fantastic. To hear about just how the intentionality behind the design has created a sense of community is wonderful as well. And there's an amazing story that is continuing to unfold here. And I'm really hoping that the story is captured, that your anecdotes, your stories are captured as part of the larger story. And I think about also, we've had other school districts come to visit the school and whatnot, that despite some of the challenges that are still in place, that here is an amazing story to be told and shared with other school districts around designing new spaces in a way that engenders a sense of community, and that, certainly in this case, helps us on the path of reconciliation, because this has been a project in that regard, I think, as well. So I want to raise my hands to you all for coming and sharing this with us. It's been a really heavy couple of weeks. I work at Couch of Tribes, a lot of things happening there, and just to hear this, it's very uplifting as well. And so I hope this story emerges as well and gets told through our website and various means as well, whether it's from the washrooms or all the various aspects of it, the peers, and how things are going. So it's just so much there's much to be proud of here as well. So I hope this story emerges as well in a good way. So I raise my hand to you. Thank you.
I'll speak proud.
So it's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for sharing how you're using the school and making those spaces work for you. Back in the design stages of the school, there was huge consultation with kids and teachers from all over the province. And in some cases, the design of the space was intentional for what would happen in there. But in many other cases, the design of the space was intentionally ambiguous so that people could make it their own, which it sounds to me like is happening. So my question for you is, how do the spaces, how does the new physical environment help you accomplish the things you want to accomplish as a community? How does that interact with being a community? Sort of. Any thoughts?
So in terms of being part of the community, for the first time that I know of, our Calton Secondary Band has actually been a part of our building. Ever since made in 1950, if I remember correctly, it's been not really outcasted, but it wasn't a part of the building. And same with the inclusive education, now it's a part of the building, and it feels like the community is now being built in together. It feels much better.
Mr. Streck.
I won't echo all the fantastic comments, but I will let you know, my son started grade 10 this year at school. He's in French immersion, and he loved Quam, I have to say, which was great. But I know the first week picking him up, he just loves the school. He finds everybody so friendly. He loves his teachers. He actually wants a desk now to study on, so you guys are working miracles there. It's like an epiphany or something. No, but all joking aside, I think a lot of it is that environment, and it comes from the students around him, and it comes from the teachers and the counselors and the other staff. So you're doing a fantastic job. It's working with my kids, so very, very happy, and yeah, look forward to the rest of the year at the school. So congratulations.
We needed that post-COVID.
Yes, we did.
A little question. So when the staff call together a small assembly of 150 students, what kind of conversations do you guys have?
The one I mostly remember was at the beginning of the year when they brought us out of our few classrooms and we kind of made like a big circle, and Mr. Jackson talked about how because the bathroom's now gender neutral, just how to flush a toilet. That's what I remember from the
Remember who you was
I was explaining the mechanisms of a toilet seat.
And girls can now see you if you don't wash your hands.
Mr. Jackson has been working on this since the days of bench. This is a
I did have some practice at
bench.
So what kind of things do you bring up to the adults?
So for community spaces, it's more of dire situations, but for assemblies, you can bring anything you'd want to it. For example, clubs, the Eco Club wanted to bring up situations about how they were putting some plastic things inside the compost and it wasn't correct, so you wanted to make sure that they were doing it properly. And those type of things you can bring up, same with some victories with your sport teams, they can bring them up in assemblies and all sorts of things.
We've had presentations from social justice class as well. Yeah.
Also, as like we're all in leadership, so we've talked at must have talked at the grade 10 assembly when we were there on the first day for the grade 10s, and just we've been to the assemblies and different class and like small groups of classrooms, like multiple classrooms, just talking about our upcoming events that we're doing, and just like if anyone wants to join leadership and just reaching out and showing that we're here.
Is there a lot of back and forth? Or is it more one way?
It's more back and forth, especially what I like to think about Cowson Secondary is if you want to do something, there's always help that you can find. So an example I'll take in this will be, it's a good one. I'll take the project of Chelsea, and that was like the project she was talking about of the social justice class. She brought up the big concern last year of the Lapu Lapu Festival, and she wanted to bring that up as her project of social justice in the assembly, and they had to do lots of conversations back and forth to make sure what's right and what can be said and all these different things to show to the community that we are all caring together and grieving for the problem that happened there.
I think just to add to that too, opportunities so students can bring voice and ideas to the leadership, and also student council is another way they can voice opinions and listening. And we've done a town council, school council. We're inviting students to be a part of our code of conduct and to give feedback, and through our student survey. So there's a variety of different opportunities for students to be able to give voice, and making it risk-free for them as well.
Thank you for that. Any other questions? Thank you very much for coming. We always enjoy this time of the month, and we get to hear from the students in the schools. So thank you very much, Couchin.
You know what? Yeah, you're so right. When we go from dirt to
See you later, Massa. Yes, we can. Sharon? Stop sharing. Program that Keita's on, I took her up.
I'll share that screen.
super cool.
I got the inside track when I took Keith out for breakfast on Sunday.
And there you go, you can expand it.
What to do with him?
Right, nice. That's awesome.
It'd be interesting to see attendance.
You know, it's amazing how much your space, if it's healthy, your mental health.
Before yeah. Yes, please. No, I've got my paper version. I'm good.
All right, enhancing student learning. Mr. Rowan, you're up.
All right. Okay, thanks everyone. This is the framework for enhancing student learning report that's we're doing for the ministry. I think many of you have seen it on different presentations now. This started early in 2025 as we were, this is our accountability towards the ministry on the learning that we're doing.
Technology.
Apologies. This is the one who watched it.
Click off or
Apologies.
Right. Sorry, no leaving.
Yeah. I could also share it from the agenda.
Anyway, Jason, sorry, I think one of the HDMI cables on this monitor is short. That's why I was clicking out on the last presentation.
I think I can do this.
So he's gonna. Jason's gonna take over. Perfect.
So hopefully that's put away.
Is that what you want to show?
Jason, you're on that?
I got it. You just need to tell me when to advance.
Okay. Sorry. So our Enhancing Student Learning Report, due to the ministry, and just as a reminder, the board strategic plan document, we started here. We have our 4 priorities, learning and different ways of knowing, individual and collective well-being, as well as caring for place. Then, as a staff, we have operational plan and operational plans, how we're going to enact these. And then the festival is our accountability to the ministry, how we're doing and how we're going to do going forward. So what I want to do, it's 2 parts. I know most of us have seen it. It's gone through the Indigenous Education Council this past week, brought to DPACs. The parents have seen it, worked through all our administration and staff, and they've shared it with their staff. So there's been good, as well as with students. So there's been great input as we go through. So Jason, if you want to scroll down. So this is the ministry improvement cycle, monitoring and adjusting. Keep going, Jason. Until we hit intellectual development, educational outcome 1. Okay, so just up a bit. Our educational outcome 1, there's 5 outcomes in this report, and so that you all know what we're reporting on. This is populated by the ministry. Our first educational outcome is literacy. Some interesting trends here. Our participation rate has steadily increased over the years. And that's an important factor. There is a working theory that we have, as there's been greater participation, we're getting a much more accurate picture of how all of our students are performing. On the box below, this is grade 4 is our first measure of literacy. The square box is the provincial average, and the bars are our results as well as our percentage. There's no percentage there for the provincial average, but you can see where it lies. Interesting trend note here is that we have really mirrored the province in our results. This is grade 4 foundation skills assessment, and these are the students who would grade as on track or extending. So what percentage of the kids are on track or extending? We have mirrored the province, but we are lower than this. For our priority populations, our Indigenous students, and then it breaks down to Indigenous students on reserve and off reserve, children, youth in care, and students with designations, so disabilities or diverse abilities. Where it says masked on there, that means there are 10 or less students that scored in the on track or extended. So out of grade 4, however many students are on reserve, there would have been less than 10 scoring in that age. Okay? Which is why, so you can't identify who people are individually. So we know our work, we see our priority populations. This is grade 4. Jason, if we go down, the next measure was grade 7. literacy and the foundation skill assessment, same trend, increased participation rates over the years. And Jason, our achievement is really, again, mirroring the province, but some percentage points below it. This is our work, especially when we're looking at our priority populations, as I mentioned. The next grouping is our grade 10 literacy assessments. This one's a bit more, everyone must do this assessment to graduate, so participation rates are increasing because it's been relatively new, but everyone must do this one to graduate. And again, we see that trend line of our results mirroring the province, but being a bit lower. Something of note when we look at our reviewing of this data is when you look at all resident students, all students, it does include all of our Indigenous students, children, youth, and care, and children designations. In the Cowichan Valley, we have 21% of our students are identified as Indigenous. The provincial rate is about 11%. So one thing that will also, as our students improve with their literacy, we will see that those bars increase, as well as the all students will definitely increase, if that makes sense. Some outcomes. Of course,
Yeah.
Here we go, guys. Sorry. So some trends I mentioned are notable trends. The other one is that we see locally, we've spent a lot of work working with literacy. It's embedded now in the last 3 years in. We're seeing some positive signs and some positive results. Our local tracking, our local dashboards are giving us a trend of what we're seeing on the FSAs the year later. So we're optimistic about some improvement as we go forward. Our work has been really focused on the K to 7, and there's 8 and 9 work going, but our focus again in keeping that embedded and really looking at secondary schools this year to improve our literacy as well.
Can we ask questions as we go, or would you?
It's up to you. Sure.
You tell me.
Yep, that's fine.
So I can understand why sort of the results for literacy sort of go forward rather than in great jumps. I understand that. Do you find that the teams are adjusting and learning as they go as well? Is there anything particularly profound that may have changed or been learnt in the last 3 years?
I think the main change for us is the use of the dashboards by the classroom teachers. So there's global results as we're doing right now, but having the classroom teachers use the results for their class and their students, where they're breaking down literacy into the different domains, vocabulary, sound recognition, etc., and then targeting those areas, that's been a real growth area. And I feel, hearing that our teachers are really becoming more fluent with that and understanding that. Okay, so the next, Jason, if we go down, there's one other one for literacy. This part here, Jason, that mean, keep going down a bit. The line. This is one of, maybe, Elizabeth, this is to your question. This is part of we did some work locally here also to analyze our results. There's a lot of stuff here, but the long and short of it is, for students who are missing a large number of days, if they're in the all students category, the impact on their results is less so than our students that are in the priority populations who miss the same amount. So 2 students missing 20 days, which is significant. The students in a priority population are Indigenous students who are there. The impact that we're seeing in their results is greater than that. So what does that tell us also? Attendance needs to be a focus, and we really need to work to make sure that attendance is also part of this equation.
Okay. Yep. So that was one of my questions about even the new building and the nature of its design and just getting kids into moving. It will be really interesting to see with that particular cohort. That's not all schools, but with that particular cohort, if we see change just by having kids in there.
I think it's really good points, Cindy. And as we know, Couchin, for our Indigenous population, it is a greater number, so our impact for that priority group, we might see a big change because of that.
So is that a conversation you also had at the Indigenous Council?
Yes. I gave this exact presentation.
What was the thoughts there? Is it like, I know the school district's done a lot of work on, say, sense of belonging, so you want to go somewhere where you feel valued and, you fit in. That's just one thing I can think of, but has that Indigenous Council given you any, inclination as to how that could be improved? And I know you had the Soutons, and that was like I thought that was an amazing idea, and I think that'll take time to see the results of that, but.
Tim, you want to jump in on this?
Sure. So I think a big piece that we've been working on this year, obviously through last spring, is focus on attendance, priority populations. We brought this forward yesterday during the non-instructional day. What we have is we have a district principal through the board focused on priority populations, and all of our schools are sending names of students who are non-attenders to our district principal. Phone calls are made, so there's more direct contact, and we've spoken to our principals about tracking attendance as a big priority, and if students miss 2 or 3 days, it's got to be a phone call home to have that conversation so that we're not sort of letting kids fall through the cracks, and we're just staying on top of it. So, yeah. It's intentional, yeah.
If you don't mind me jumping back, and I'll probably ask through the chair to talk to the superintendent, but okay, so I'm back to these because I can't quite leave them yet, because I'm noticing since we were elected, there's been a steady decline in percentage of success. And I know that a lot of things have shifted and changed, and I know we're keeping up with the province, but I don't really like to talk about what the province is doing because I like to hear what we're doing. But I noticed in all of these, there's been a huge decline between last year and this year especially in all categories. And I'm wondering what's happening, because I know as we've listened to school presentations over and over and over again, and we hear of schools where, a small percentage of their kids are meeting or exceeding, and we know that's not good enough. Is there new strategies in place for the school year to try and figure out why we're declining in percentage of success? Like, I guess my concern, and I'm sorry, Jeff, that I'm going backwards, but I've circled them all, because there's not one where we did better last year than we did the year before. And so I'm just wondering what's happening that are, I don't care, like I said, I don't care about the provincial average, I care about what's happening here in the Cowichan Valley. And I'm just wondering, with this data, I'm sure it's alarming, because our kids are struggling more this year or last year than they were the year before. And I'm just wondering what's in place to try and figure out how to flip that to see an increase.
Sure. From my end of it, and I'll share what I shared yesterday. Ms. Bobby had said to me when I spoke to her previous week, speak the truth, and this is our reality. I think a portion of it again is that we have more students who are writing the FSAs, for example. So these assessments are reflective of our student population on a greater sense than they were previously. Students who may have been exempted previously are now writing, and we're probably more in line with the guidelines for students to be accepted than we were previously. So, so that's a positive thing, and we have to look for the trends going forward here. I can say that through Assistant Superintendent Reynolds' office and her team, they've got a literacy framework that's in place that will be coming forward to the board as well. So you'll hear more about the plans around literacy. But what I said yesterday, and this isn't a revelation. This is something that's I think we're all aware of. But the research shows us that if a student isn't reading at grade level by grade 4, they're going to continue to struggle throughout their time with us. So that's a key indicator, a key benchmark as to which kids that we need to focus in on here. So
I just didn't want to lose sight of that. That's not good enough, so we shouldn't be celebrating that.
Yeah.
Okay.
And it just brings to mind, like, what are our children coming into the school with, right? So our kindergarten children that are coming in, and what the EDI is telling us is that they are struggling, and we have more and more families struggling. So I'm also curious about like the kindergarten grade 1, like that real early learning time in our district, because I also had the exact same question that Trustee Schmidt asked, was like, why such a, and I get that we're, it's like abuse. The more people who report abuse, the more it seems like abuse has gone up. But so if that's the scenario, and I just wonder where those early years of just pumping up our kids to get them to that grade 4 success.
Is that okay? Was that a question?
No, just
just making sure. So what about externalities? I know that our numbers aren't terrific, but there's definitely downward trends all the way across the province. And then when we talk about our kids in elementary school, I mean, some of those kids were COVID kids, so they lost their first year essentially, and their following years were pretty weird. So, so I guess my question is that when you see a province-wide trend, what are the externalities? And is anybody anywhere looking into the societal trends that are feeding into this?
Yeah, sorry, through you, Chair. I guess what I'm looking at and what I'm focused on right now, and there's another graphic that we shared yesterday, and I think it's really a key piece of information for us to be looking at. And this is, again, we're talking about priority learners, we're talking about, you can see up here, Indigenous learners, but if you look at Indigenous learners on reserve, children, youth in care, and the students with diverse abilities and disabilities. Those groups of students, and I think it was 53 students, were right. If you look at a Venn diagram, look at it from a Venn diagram perspective. Indigenous learners, children, youth in care, students with diverse abilities and disabilities, right in the middle. Intersecting between all 3 of those areas are 53 students. We need to know who those 53 students are. We need to focus in on those students. Around that, there are, if you add them all up, there's a few hundred more students who are either an Indigenous student who's in care, children youth in care with diverse abilities, or Indigenous student with diverse abilities. We need to focus in on those kids. If we're going to make a difference to our overall success rates, we have to focus on those students. And so in order to see our numbers go up, those are the kids that we have to prioritize.
Just for clarification, so what we're talking about is intersectionality, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Absolutely.
Attendance. When you talk about attendance and stuff, you talk about, and it's not just our Indigenous students, but it's all of our students, especially with socioeconomic factors have a huge impact on our on our outcomes at schools. And it's a real battle for everybody, and it's not just the Indigenous community, but it's everybody. And I don't see those socioeconomic indicators improving at this point in time. One question I have is, when you meet with the Indigenous Education Councils, what do they have to say about attendance?
Yeah, and back through you, attendance, priority populations is our number one focus area. Attendance has to be the number one strategy, and focusing on students being at schools. Assistant Superintendent Rowan, if kids aren't there, there's a discrepancy between students who are in class and students who are in class. So that has to be our focus. And as I've said, we're putting systems in place to monitor attendance, to be working with our schools, but also to have our staff from the district office directly in contact and phoning those families. And we're reaching out. We're even at this point, before September 30th, we're reaching out to any students who haven't attended so far. And I think there's a statistic is that if they miss 4 days in September, they're going to continue to miss 4 days every month throughout. And that is just, if you add it over the 10 months here, it's 40 days of education lost. And so we're aware of that. We're honing in on moving from numbers to names. We know who the kids are, making contacts. We're focusing on attendance. So.
Are the Indigenous Education Councils helping with that, or have any thoughts on that? Or
I would say it's a shared responsibility through the LEAs. I mean, it's written right in the LEA that it's a shared responsibility.
It's a question that's, I don't know why I've never asked it, but when death happens in community, how do we keep the kids moving forward educationally when they need to spend time in community to go through, everything they go through within death in the community? Like what supports, educational supports do they get from us? Because we know, I know, we all know that recently there's been a lot of deaths in Cowichan. And so those kiddos, of course, are going to be spending a lot of time. And, I sadly had to witness some of the little kiddos, not going to first days of school and stuff this September because of death and family. And so what I'm wondering is, like, do our Soutons maybe reach out and support educationally while there's death in community, or whether it's big house season or whatever it is? Like, what do we do to make sure we can bridge that gap? Because we all know that could be a long time to throw away.
So I think a direct answer to your question is yes.
Okay.
The Soutons. You're focused on that. We were fortunate enough yesterday, with the 900,000 staff members that were in attendance, to have 2 former students who are now graduates, a few years removed from our system, come and speak to the masses and just talk about the importance of the Indigenous education room and the Soutons, and really what that means for them, or what it meant for them in terms of connection and somebody to be supporting and on top of what they're doing, helping them get back into classes and even literally walking back to classes. So plays a huge role. Yeah.
Thank you. Good to know.
Do we need more Soutons?
I don't know if we need more. It's I can't actually answer that question. What I would say is that we know that those supports are important and they work, and I think as we put structures in place or just our initiatives in place, we'll see how it goes. But can't just fall to the southern side. And it's this information, some of it was shared yesterday, and shared again with the IEC, with other groups, and in draft form. But before bringing it to the board, we wanted to make sure that others had input into it, and we're putting very intentional or purposeful strategies in place to support all learners.
Two ones that I'll just comment briefly too. In terms of potential leaders that supporting, there's also, we are going to be working with nations so that kids who are doing cultural work can get accredited, which keeps them moving through their graduation program. That would be that's a newer initiative for us. Much like when you get your boating license or your driver's license, you get external credits. There's an ability to do that through the nations. We think that'll help kids also honor that learning and time that they had culturally. The other comment I would make with Soutons, we're also very careful the teacher role is also critical. So the Souton does not replace the teacher, it's that support role. So it's a balance.
Yeah, thank you for making those comments. And I was just going to say, Trustee Schmidt, that the first initiative that the superintendent spoke about is directly ties in with our observations, having gone to a recent event. So we're putting this into place to recognize students for the work that they're doing in community and the teachings that they're experiencing, and seeing how we can get credits for students for the work that they're involved in outside of our school system as well.
Okay. Numeracy. So that's outcome number 1, literacy, critical. Outcome number 2 is numeracy. Again, very similar. Our participation rates increasing over time. The results, again, mirroring provincial average, but lower. You'll also notice as we go through, this is grade 4 FSA on track or extending. Jason, we go to the next one, is grade 7. Numeracy. The numeracy scores are low provincially. The numeracy is lower than the literacy for us and provincially. There is provincial work being done on numeracy and awareness. We are also, had the first year of a numeracy plan that's very similar to our literacy last year. It was just getting into it, and now that becomes something we need to have a focus on numeracy as well. Okay, in the grade 10 area, and again, the bars for everybody gets a little bit lower here as we go through the grades, which is concerning. So the numeracy, very similar pattern as the literacy for us. And again, it's our work locally that we're counting on we're going to see some improvements by doing a focus on our dashboard. Numeracy. Same things for us. We know that especially for us with 21% of our students being Indigenous, as we focus our resources and energies on that population, it will increase not only our numbers for all, but the work that's being done there will benefit everyone. Good instruction. The next one, human social development, this is outcome 3, feeling safe and welcome to school. I would like us to celebrate this one. Okay, I think this one is something where we have done a decade's worth of work to be understanding, to be welcoming, and I think there's some really good. This is coming out of the learning surveys the students do. Again, grades 4, 7, 10. You can see that in our district we are at or even exceeding in places for different groups. That first one is, do you feel welcome at your school? Positive response. Okay. The next ones are feeling safe in our schools, sense of belonging in our schools. Jason, the next one as well. And they just picked the four of those questions. So again, feeling belonging, and it's an amalgamation of grade 4, 7, and 10. And then the next one that they send us, and this is the ministry, we didn't choose these, the ministry sends us these to report on. 2 or more adults who care. Personally, I find this one is maybe the most important of those. Kids are recognizing there's people that care about them. So that's a positive thing for us, even as we've had greater participation rates, et cetera, and that data going forward. Our challenge is to, as we increase the work on attendance, as we increase the work on literacy, numeracy, and raise the bar of our expectations, that we do not lose the welcoming, caring feeling. There's sometimes we don't want to be a pendulum on that it's you're caring or you're academic. We need to be able to do both. Okay. The next one is graduation. I know as a board we've done a lot of work on this together. So again, the data they sent us, just for making sure we're transparent and clear, in our district, the students who are in grade 10, they transition to grade 11 just by their being in their age. So we transition in the next year to grade 11, so our rates are very high transitioning. The next one, grade 11 to 12, is the same pattern you would see. We'd have a high transition rate because kids are transitioning to the next grade. Where we see the difference is again our graduation rate. Our 5-year graduation rate, especially for our Indigenous population, Indigenous on reserve, that is the work that we need that kids graduating on. The ministry has sent us the 5-year rate. I know as a district we will work on the 5-year rate. We also do recognize, we honor the 6-year rate, and we do see a bump in the 6th year when kids, some need a little bit of extra time. And for us, we feel that is legitimate, but it is a bit political. The 5-year rate seems to be the measure. Fine, we will address the 5-year rate as well, but we do honor the 6-year rate as well. In terms of the adult dogwood,
I'll make another comment, and I heard the same comment made here as I've heard in other districts when speaking with representatives from Indigenous communities. They're not as concerned about the 5-year rate, and the student graduates in 5 years or 6 years. It doesn't matter. It's taking the time that's necessary for the learning to happen, and students will graduate when they're ready is the message that I've received. So I think we can embrace that as the sentiment is coming from a lot of the First Nations communities. 5-year statistics are the data that's here. It's just the data, but students will graduate when they're ready.
See Susan.
Thank you. Just to say thank you for that. Yeah, it's really good to hear that at this table. It's been gnawing at me when these things come up, so really appreciate your comments. Thank you.
Trustee Croft.
Yeah, I just wanted to say I appreciate that as well, and I think that sort of the kids I was familiar with when my daughter was in school, they're like, well, let me see, I can take way too many courses in grade 11 and 12, or I can stretch it out for another term instead of killing myself, right? And I think, personally, I think that the 5-year completion rate is because the system needs them gone after 5 years because they're expensive. And I don't think it really has much to do with the quality or the caliber of the educational experience. So.
It's historical, the 5-year rate. So, and university's no different. Because you're not finished in 4 years, why not? For some kids, so it takes an extra year. That's okay. So that's for that.
The data also, in terms of our graduation rate, we are using the adult dogwood appropriately. It's not there are some districts who are using it as too much. So we're using it appropriately. Okay, the next one is the, Jason, let's go to the outcome 5. So the final outcome here is the transition to post-secondary. So this is the immediate transition to post-secondary for students in institutions in British Columbia. So it's the immediate transition to post-secondary institutions in British Columbia. Interestingly, our students with designation are rated at the provincial average and have been for the past few years. There is mass data for students and kids in care, Indigenous students on reserve, and Indigenous students off reserve. It's possible for students in care, as an example, if we have 136 students in care divided by the 13 years, that'd be roughly 10 students in a grade. That mask might not be bad. That might not be bad data. I just want to be careful on the mask data, okay? Because there are only so many students in some way, so you're masking it because there's less than 10. There might only be 15 or 20, right? So I'm careful about the mask data on this one here. It might not be bad news. I think our transition rate seems to be within range for the most part. The next slide is the 3-year transition rate. Okay. And again, it varies somewhat. These are institutions within British Columbia. So our students are transitioning into post-secondary. Yeah.
And we know that through district scholarships because many kids tell us they're going to take a gap year and that they have so many years to be able to use those district scholarships. So we know that kids just sometimes need that time off. So that data doesn't surprise me at all.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, and then I'll go through quickly with turn number 2, Jason. So that's the first part of the report. That's our analysis of the data. The second part of the report here, really, this becomes our operation plan. And we'll just scroll down, Jason, if we can, to the first part is our introduction, all that kind of thing. If we go down to reflect and adjust chart, number 1. Right. I feel like I can go through this fairly quickly with you as a board because you're well aware of this part. So this reflect and adjust part, this really is our operational plan. So what we've taken now is in learning, for example, that is the statement from our foster a deep commitment through authentic hands-on evidence, and that's straight from our strategic plan. We have 2 main goals, goal number 1 and then goal number 2. And these are the strategies, and it's not everything. We're not trying to capture everything here. We're just trying to get here's some important things that we're doing. Is areas for growth within that strategy. Our take on it, has it been effective, and how we can adjust it. So in terms of learning, we want to use evidence. Our first goal is ensuring that we use evidence-based literacy instruction intervention for mastery of skill that will have improved outcomes in our literacy dashboards and those assessments that we just went over at grade 4, 7, and 10. The second goal is ensure all learners have access to quality numeracy instruction, interventions, and mastery of skills. So that's under our learning frame. There's literacy numeracy. The next chart is our Indigenous ways of knowing. There's our strategic plan, and our goals operationally to do that are to demonstrate culturally responsive pedagogy that increase student engagement as indicated by Indigenous student attendance and achievement. So we're working on attendance, we're working on achievement. Goal number 2, ensure priority learners graduate and are prepared to pursue their future goals as identified in their student life plans. All of our kids have life plans that they're working on. We feel that's another way to help with engagement and motivation. Individual collective well-being. Here our goal, the first goal is to implement support developmentally appropriate opportunities in health literacy, K to 10. We have open parachute that we're using. That's going to be our main focus with the mental health funds that we have. And also our PHE, we're bringing teachers together to really work with our physical education and health teachers. Goal number 2, support the implementation of wellness resources promoting healthy school environments. Children, youth, and care frameworks, gender diversity, inclusion, all the work we're doing in that area. And the fourth goal of the board, caring for place. The first goal is creating sustainable learning environments. We have our climate action framework and plan. Goal number 2 is provide opportunities for staff and students to learn and participate in reciprocal relationships with the earth for sustainability. Climate action grants the board has put forward, trying to really see an increase in outdoor land-based learning and education. Okay. And that is one thing I would say about our alignment. That was a positive that we saw last year. The province has switched a little bit. So there's 60 districts, 20 are doing a full report. That is us. We're part of the 20. 20 are doing a review, and they would do the full report in a year. The other 20 are going to do a full report in year 3. We will do an update in year 2 and 3, and then we'll repeat this cycle in 3 years from now.
Yeah. Questions? Trustee Croft.
It's huge. How long does it take to put together, and how many people work on it?
7 months.
So
you're working a long time.
Next one tomorrow, then.
Yeah. It's one thing I would say, Elizabeth. It has been a lot of work, and even with the questions you're asking here and the conversations we're having, that's occurred in all over the place. It's been a useful tool to illuminate what we've been doing, where our goals are. Tim used some of this work yesterday as he addressed in his address to the whole district, and it was really well received because it's been good to really hone in on this is the work, this is the priority.
Thank you. A comment / correction and then a question. So under the territorial acknowledgement, Cowichan, so Halal, Penelkut, Skamanias, Lax, and Cowichan tribes are all Cowichan people. So Cowichan that should be Cowichan tribes rather than Cowichan because they're all Cowichan people. Malahat and Tabasset aren't. Malahat are Halkmino speaking people, but they're not Cowichan. Tabasset is an Nchon speaking people. They're all within the district. I just wanted to sort of indicate, because Cowichan tribes is not here, and I think they may have been replaced with Cowichan. So I can make that correction in the territorial acknowledgement that it should be Cowichan tribes.
So the Cowichan Valley Woodrange was in Valley. Okay. I did take this right off of our board acknowledgement, so if we change that too.
And that it should be Cowichan.
I believe I copied straight off of our board acknowledgement, but I'll double check that and then.
Yeah.
You do have Cowichan?
What?
You do Cowichan every time?
And you will see Cowichan tribes?
Yep, you'll see Cowichan, Malahat, Tabasset, Halal, Penelkut, Skamanias, and Lax people.
Okay. We need to revisit that issue, Cowichan tribes.
So, okay.
Oh, and then the question.
So just to be clear, so just take out the word Cowichan and put Cowichan tribes.
Yeah. Okay. Well, Cowichan tribes, Halal, Penelkut, Skamanias, and Lax are all Cowichan people, so maybe
Cowichan tribes.
Culturally and language-wise with that. Okay. It's an ongoing issue. And Tabasset, as I mentioned, are Nchon people. That used to be Lake Cowichan First Nation, but yeah, they're Nchon people. And the question is, so did we receive a report like this last year? Because this is so clear. What is it? Maybe because my mind is clearer this year? Because it just seems like a much, I don't know, clearly laid out. Like what's changed?
We get this.
What's that?
We get this.
Yeah, but this just seems a lot clearer this year.
You know what, one thing I'll say. This time, I'm a person of fewer words, I think. So, sorry, but and then we've talked about just 2 goals, 2 activities, or 2 strategies per goal. We try to keep it much more focused. Yeah, the previous one was a little bit more trying to capture everything.
Yeah.
And this time we really have tried to there's much more that we do, but this is what we're going to measure because it gets too unwieldy if you start to have everything.
So that's I was wondering because
it has changed a bit.
It just seems much more absorbable / digestible. So
we changed it quite a bit.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions?
Randy, and I think I mean Jason or Tim, I'm not sure what now, if the board just receives it. The other groups have just received it from me, but does the board have to do anything different here? Jason?
It's approval.
Approval. So what, does that require a motion then?
There's a motion on the agenda.
Yeah. Okay, sorry. Yeah.
Recommendation?
So the Board of Education Business Committee meeting recommends the Enhanced Student Learning Report September 2025 to the Board of Education for approval. Moved by Trustee Schmidt, Trustee Croft, all in favor? Motion carried.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Rowan.
Thanks, great.
Your work. Okay, next, Mr. Sandquist.
Thank you. We have been tracking enrollment almost daily since the doors opened. School started 2 weeks ago, 2.5 weeks ago. So what I want to show you is how enrollment has been coming in. And I'll start with elementary. You can see each school there. The first column, what that shows you is what the actual FTE was last year. 25-26 projected, that's what we thought it would be when we completed our staffing. So we had 32 students down at the bottom of the elementary column, and that was Mill Bay reallocation. So those were the students that stayed for one more year, and we weren't sure where they were going to end up. That's why that number is kind of held there with no data around it on either side, because eventually they dispersed into the other schools. So what you can see here is change from prior year. In fact, when this was measured on September 19th, we had thought that we were going to have 4,697 FTE in elementary. And in fact, right now that's 4,673, so it's a change of 24. So we're down 24 below what we projected. So it's actually pretty close. And down 127 from the prior year. You recall this was the category where there was significant surprise last year on the drop in enrollment. So tracking reasonably close to projections down 24. When I move to the secondary column, which we include Quamachin in, and also the grade 7s at Chemainus end up in this data set, you can see again. For example, Chemainus Secondary last year was 375.25. We thought they'd be 378.51. They're at 372.13. So down 3.13 from the prior year and 6.39 from projection. So the big swings here are really that Francis Kelsey is up a little bit higher, 15.51 than we had expected. Or is that from last year? Sorry, no, that's from expected. And then we just heard from Cowitson talking about how some students that were not in the system have come back to the system. So that's where our big variance is in secondary, where we are up 39.16 from what we had projected and 41.15 from last year. Now, some of that may also be tied to retaining students that are not going to the CVOLC program. CVOLC, if you go down a little bit lower, is actually down 28 students from projection at this time. And so that may be that some of the students are being retained more at the Cowitson campus than CVOLC. And we can see this change throughout this month as students get deferred or leave before the end of September. Secondary enrollments are much more dynamic than elementary enrollments, but it does take a couple of weeks before elementary enrollment really settles. Knowing the designations and knowing the number of students, the students might be registered at more than one school, and that doesn't become clear for a little while, which is why it takes some time for classes to be finalized for the elementary grades. So overall, when we look at the DL program, about 8 down at this point, again, they continue to pick up students before September 30th. This is a mid-month check-in, as well as open school. And if open school is down, then the board are also not paying tuition to VIU because most of that is dual credit. Also in open school would be the Dance Academy. So overall, when we look at the other column, it's down 52.75, but total school age down about 36.64 from projection. We don't have data on the adult learners yet, so right now we're showing down 177 from last year. We thought we'd be down about 136 and down 41 from projection. So likely picking up a few more students as that, as we sort of understand the CVOLC enrollment and additional students show up at Cowitson. So not far off, not like last year where there was 149 student difference. This year it's approximately a 41 student difference at this time. And very dynamic. Makes staffing very challenging. So if there aren't any questions, that's sort of the midpoint enrollment update. And then I've taken that and translated it into our funding estimator. So based on the enrollment-based funding being down those 41 students, we could expect to see a drop of about $355,000 on that component of the revenue. The enrollment decline supplement for every student that the board declines greater than 1% of the prior year's total, there's 50% dollars, and that's intended to relieve some of the pressure in transitioning to a rapid decline in districts, so beyond 1% decline. And that's where you see it a positive 186,000, which is basically half of the other number. The big changes here that I really want to draw your attention to is we projected 496 level 2 designations. And that number is at 551. So that is a swing of 55 students. We were aware of some of those as we got into late May, but we're definitely 30 above where we thought we were going to be at the end of May. And that generates, if we weren't in funding protection, a lot of revenue. There's 1,338,700 there that would be generated. So I'm going to explain all this in a minute. We're also up on English language learners by about 34. Okay, and so that means unique student needs would have increased by 1.337 million if we weren't in funding protection. Funding protection now disappears because of that large increase in number of designations. So that means that the grant has now paid back $793,000 of funding protection. The district, if these numbers are all what we finalize with at September 30th, you're not in funding protection. In fact, you'd be ahead by $374,000. But now that does not address the the challenge now of 55 additional level 2s that need supports. And so that is the work we're doing now, is to identify what's left of the staffing contingency and what do we have to come back potentially to the board, which you'll find out about surplus funds in 2 days, how to have a plan to address those students. So knowing we were in funding protection by $793,000, the budget was created with approximately $500,000 in staffing contingency. Staffing that can be funded without making a change to your budget. Okay? Now some of that, based on how enrollment has fallen, may be utilized for teachers, because one student in can mean that the board pays for another division in a particular school, and many of the divisions are in classroom enhancement fund, but some of them are also funded, majority of them are funded from the operating budget. So we're monitoring that now and trying to figure that all out. And I expect we'll have a much clearer picture in the coming days as to what's left of that staffing contingency and what will be required to support all those level 2 students. There's more to come on that, but I wanted to highlight it because I would not have projected that the board would come out of funding protection this year.
Questions? So we have 55 more designated students than we thought, and we're going to figure out if we have the money for them a little later.
Well, very soon. There is a contingency now, and we're just wanting to establish what's left of that. That is money that the board's already budgeted for. It would mean not having to come back and be able to spend that, but we're not sure what more may be required. And that's the breadcrumb I'm dropping right now, is that we're probably going to have more information on this very, very soon, and be determining whether or not there needs to be an additional ask.
May I follow up? So my question is, soon we'll know for sure, but we have those 55 children now, so how are they being served?
There's currently some temporary positions in some, and at least I know at one school.
Christine, you say?
My question follows along the same line. So how are we staffing and are we able to hire the amount of staff required to support children in such a way? Like, that's a big hire in a community that's really struggling to get staff. Are we able to bring folks up from students who have dropped off, or is this a big hire we anticipate?
Well, I think because the number was originally dropping, or was anticipated to be dropping, it was one of the board's budget reductions in this year. So there may still be those individuals now on our casual list who were in positions last year when we had a higher number. We had a higher number than 496, which we started the budget on last year. So again, we would have to work with HR to find out if they're still in our system as casuals and available for postings.
I have the utmost confidence that those kids are being given what they need right now. But my question is this. So we have 55 level 2s that bounce us out of funding protection, which I've never seen. So that's just blowing my mind right now. Is this a trend that's happening throughout the province? Are we seeing increases of kids throughout? Okay. So my question is if this is becoming, if this is happening more and more, where we're declining in students, but our designated kids are going up, is this something that maybe is one of the topics that we need to start talking to ministry about? Because to be quite honest, to service 55 kiddos, and I know that we put EAs in schools and they're put out by principals, like I understand the process, but 55 kiddos is a lot of kiddos. And I'm wondering if this is something that we need to bring to the ministry's attention is, yes, we are. I mean, I know that they get all these reports, and I know that all of the folks below the minister is going to read all the reports, yada, 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 yada. But our direct connection is with the minister herself. And what I'm wondering is if this is worth a conversation with the minister to say, we were in funding protection. This is where we were. And all of a sudden, these 55 kiddos that need extra support are here. So we bounced out of funding protection, but we only had $374,345 left to give service, possible left, to give service to these kiddos. And if they're widespread throughout a multitude of schools, then this is going to get expensive. So I'm wondering if this is possibly worth a conversation that we need to have with the ministry as a board to the minister about the fact that funding protection or no funding protection, we're seeing a massive increase, and we need to, as she asked about us doing things differently, we need to talk about what she's learned that can do differently that can support these kids. So I'm wondering if now's the time with the information that we've got today, and maybe we can get this to go to the board.
Well, I know the minister and the ministry are very well aware of the increasing number of level 2 designations in the province of BC. They're also aware that overall enrollment in the province is flatlining and beginning to decline for the next 4 years. So I'm quite convinced they understand that classrooms are becoming more complex with higher concentrations of students with designations. What comes to this board is simply just through the class size and composition language, that there may be classrooms that we previously had 3 designations and we didn't get extra teaching staffing for. Now they would have remedy and class sizes would be dropping in order to comply with our teacher collective agreement language. We haven't done the full analysis on how many additional divisions were created this year because of greater complexities, but there may be more teaching. But that's classrooms. That's not the way the ratios work. It doesn't provide resource time because that's just on overall students. It's not on students with designations. It doesn't provide more LA time or more even library time. So it's simply you might get a smaller class size through the way the contracts work now.
Superintendent.
Thank you. And thank you for the response, Secretary Treasurer. I would just add to that it may be premature to be more than this at this point. I would say Finance Department and the Inclusive Ed Department will be working together over the next few days and really taking a look at, again, with these amendments that you're seeing coming forward here to the budget, are we able to put forward recommendations to the board around budgeting that's going to meet the needs of kids? So I would wait for that before we look at doing
Follow-up? Follow-up?
I was just going to also just join Ken in the conversation. In 2 days, you will also learn from our auditors your current financial position, and I think that'll be good information for you to have if considering the budget amendments.
I know what you're saying, Mr. Senquist, but what I'm also looking at is when we talk about future board, whomever that may be, and leaving. We know that we're only 1 year away from having to seriously think about some cuts, and I know that there's lots of boards in the province that are all dealing right now with funding protection or whatever, and so if this increase is happening province-wide, there's got to be a strategy to support all of us because everybody's money is running out, and so we're at a critical time here. So I will, yeah, absolutely, we can wait, but we're at a critical time right now with the dollars, and what does that look like? I mean, that's the only thing that I'm worried about is if we have a greater surplus, that's great. However, those kiddos are going to be with us. The decline in enrollment is still happening. So what is that going to look like future-wise as far as the next board and financial stability for the district, for our staff, for our kiddos?
Well, I think in the absence of funding protection, the board would have seen an input of $1.3 million. And so I think we have to remember that we budgeted on an assumption of decline, and that decline didn't happen. So maybe in future years, if we're not in decline, but we actually still have those higher numbers of designations, there will be a funding alignment.
Okay.
I wanted to just mention that I know that PCSDA has had some advocacy on this, and that it was certainly front and center at recent recent conferences and conversations. So were we to take this on, I think it'd be a good idea for maybe you and I to check back with them and write something that's an aligned voice and might bring a little more power to it.
I have one more item, and this is, I think, the final one for me. This is the ministry's response to unexpected health emergencies. And what this is a requirement for boards to develop policy statements around the ministry and around responding to unexpected health emergencies at schools. And this requires that all schools have an AED, automated external defibrillator, and naloxone kits. And it's been suggested that those be nasal kits. So out of this policy statement, and knowing that the district has to have these in place by December 31st at secondary, but suggesting that the elementary happen or be confirmed at the same time, because we can jointly purchase with the province to acquire these items. We put together a bit of a summary sheet here of where we would believe the board would need to be allocating resources to meet this ministry requirement. Some schools already have an AED, and a lot of those were purchased in the last 5 years, and they can have a battery and pad replacement that will put them back to current status. Some schools do not have an AED, and we're estimating the cost of those installations at about $2,500, just sort of based on our own sleuthing of pricing, but not yet knowing what the ministry has procured on behalf of all school districts in the province, or Education Resource BC. We also understand a nasal dose of naloxone may run approximately $100. So we came up with this budget here of cost per location, keeping a contingency, a little bit of a contingency here of about $3,800. So just sort of looking at 5 additional doses of naloxone, maybe 2 at the secondary schools to start, and 1 at the elementary schools. And so we think it's about a $4,500,000.
45,000?
45,000. Yes, $45,000 budget requirement this year. That was not considered because it wasn't known that this was going to be an order of the province when the budget was created. It's not optional. So we do have a motion to recommend a budget amendment to the board of about $45,000. So we can proceed with this procurement in October when the provincial tender has concluded.
Trustee Croft? So moved. Second. Trustee Souza, any questions? Trustee Souza.
So, just to kind of reiterate when this came up, not so much as a budget item, but in terms of training the kids, reiterating again that that they receive the training in, was it grade 9 or 10 or something, but that they have a refresher the following year. So I just want to make sure we don't lose track of that. That's not just a 1-year training and that's it, that there's a follow-up of some sort.
Thank you. To your chair, as the superintendent Rowan is aware of the request. Thank you.
And Trustee Lisa?
And I'm also guessing, just coming from like being the first aid person on site or whatever, that it would probably fall to the training, the initial training would fall to the first aid staff over students. Like, so I'm thinking that they would all have that within their first aid training.
Secretary Treasurer. I'm also aware that most of these units now come with really quick training videos that can be shared at staff meetings, so staff have that knowledge and then they can use that in their own instruction.
If I may, first aid, those are both first aid items that usually fall to the adults in your building. So yeah, getting our kids trained is really important, but I'm sure that the staff. And then my only other thought was like, is there grants out there anywhere?
They're all gone.
Yeah, I mean, the world has dried up. It's like the desert out there right now, all over the place. But I just wondered if there were any health grants or, yeah.
Yeah, so as someone who's written all those grants for those AEDs, there was sort of a push provincially and nationally to put them in place, and there are a bunch of grants, and they're just not there anymore.
When you look at the list of the schools where there are some, particularly the secondary schools, they were out of a grant approximately 5 years ago.
Yeah.
13 of 24, that's pretty good, actually. You're actually we're well on our way when you think about it.
We estimated full replacement at around $78,000.
Okay, shall we vote on the motion? All in favor? Motion carried. All right, committees, highlights of the September 16, 2025 Advisory Committee.
Thank you. So the board engaged the advisory committee and sought their thoughts on the value of the committee and requested recommendations for improvements or revitalization. So we talked to the partner groups and they were very candid, but not everybody was there. We found a lot of, for the most part, they valued and were glad to come to the meetings. Maybe glad's not the word, but anyway, it's worthwhile to come to meetings, but not everybody was there. So this conversation will continue for a little while yet, and we look forward to making some improvements.
Thank you. Any other business? As seeing none, motion to adjourn. Trustee Schmidt, all in favor? Thank you very much. We will see you Thursday.